Welcome back to MidEast In Depth. With the news this week that a European court removed Hamas from the EU's terror list, we discuss what the consequences may be on the international political field. The Daily Star editorial states that the bad news for Israel keeps on coming, and judging by the reactions of Israeli and US politicians, more is yet to come. The editorial writes, "The reality is that Israel has learned nothing from several decades of warnings by its friends and allies who have repeatedly said Israeli indifference to human rights law, the provisions of Geneva Conventions, and the realities of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict would lead only to stalemate and backlash." The editorial states that Israel should be grateful it has remained off the terror list and that Israeli officials are likely discussing how to confront the EU court decision. The editorial predicts, while few expect Israeli officials to resort to anything other than more obstinacy, the actions of the US are even more disappointing. The author claims, as he desperately tries to keep the statehood drive off the table of the Security Council, Secretary of State John Kerry has been busy talking about the need to take carefully calibrated decisions and steps on Palestinian statehood. The editorial ends, with the international backlash against Israeli terror growing, it's Kerry and his team who should take the steps that should have been taken decades ago, as in ensuring that the Israelis recognize and respect international law. Deputy Knesset Speaker in the Jerusalem Post writes that Israel is living on borrowed time. The writer comments that although the Palestinians will have achieved success, they have been playing games. They want a state, and they want to get it for the lowest possible price, without having to make any compromises. Their method has been to carry out a violent revolt, while at the same time engaging in negotiations. The speaker highlights that this is a great juncture in the relationship between Israel, the Palestinians, Europe, and the US. Actions reached a pinnacle this week when the Palestinians decided to press for recognition at any price, and then the US announced that it would veto such a proposition if the necessary 9-member nations support the draft resolution in the Security Council. On America, he writes, "For all intents and purposes, they've withdrawn from their involvement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and instead have chosen to sit on the sidelines and watch as the two sides draw blood from each other." He reveals that the balance has shifted. Netanyahu once said, "If the US wants something, they can give us something in return." And now the US has adapted this very same strategy and expects Israel to be flexible and resume negotiations with the Palestinians. The writer concludes, "For Israel, the lesson is clear. We learned in Rome this week that we can no longer assume that the US will watch our back and use its veto power to support the Israeli position." For more updates, please visit levant.tv and subscribe to MidEast In Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.